Hello lovelies, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emma May, and if this is the first time you're coming across this channel, you're very much welcome. So all my returning subscribers and returning viewers, thank you so much for stopping by another tutorial. So in this video today, I'll be showing you how I made this long bustier dress with gathered yoke and lacing at the back. In my previous video, I shared most of the cutting tutorial, and here I'm just going to show you how I sewed and attached everything together. So please keep on watching while I get started with the video. So I have my pieces cut out here. Please do well to refer to the previous video which has the cutting tutorial. So here are the top front pieces. I have ironed hairstay on them. I also ironed the wording pieces I cut out for them. I ironed them here as well. And then for the lining pieces, I also ironed hairstay on each of them. Now I'm just going to go ahead and attach them together. So I'll place the side to the center part of the front like this, and I'll pin it down just from the top all the way to the end. I'll also pin down the second side from the top to the end, just like I did the other side, and I'll go ahead and sew it just where I have pinned down. So I'll do the same thing for the lining pieces. Now I'm bringing in the back pieces here. I'm going to go ahead and sew the darts. So the back is just a regular dart, so I'll sew the darts on the main fabric and on the lining pieces separately. So this is it here after I've joined the top front pieces together. Now I'm just going to go ahead and notch the underbust area. So I'll just give it a little notch there, just so that it will be easier for me to iron and to also nicely sit on the body. So I'll open the seams up like this and go ahead and give it a very good press. And around the bust area here, I'll make use of my bust hem underneath so that it can give it that curved effect around the bust. And then for the back pieces here, I've gone ahead to sew the darts like I said I would on the main fabric and on the lining piece. So I'll also go ahead and iron that. Now this is it here. I've ironed the lining first, and then I also ironed the main fabric. So this is how it is looking. It is already looking very curvy. If I turn it over to the right side, see the shape it is already giving. So it looks nice and already very structured. So now moving on, I'll go ahead to cut out the yoke. Now for the yoke, I'm bringing in this pattern, this one that we used in the previous video. This is the yoke that was cut out. So I'll label this one the front and I'll label the other one the back. So this is the shoulder to where I have my neck depth starting on the front and on the back pieces. Now I'm just going to go ahead and just trim off this armhole part so that it can look more like a yoke, sort of. Now this is what I have. Now I'll go ahead and place it together, making sure that the shoulders are meeting. They're just like kissing a bit. So making sure that no one is overlapping the other so that I can get the entire length of this yoke. So from, let's say, the back neck depth just right there, I'll place my tape crossing the shoulders, and then to the front neck depth, I'm just going to take the entire length I have there, and it is 16.5 inches. So this 16.5 inches is the length of my yoke. So ordinarily, when you're making a normal regular dress, there's going to be joining at the shoulders, you know, where the front and the back are meeting at the shoulders. But here it's just going to be one straight piece going from the back to the front. So this is what I have just measured out here to be 16.5 inches. So that is for the length of this yoke from back to front. And now I'm going to go ahead and measure out the width. So I will measure 2 inches from where I have my sweetheart midpoint, just the middle point of the top front. So I'll measure 2 inches away, and then from that 2 inches away from the midpoint, I'll measure the entire length or the entire width to the side. What I have there is 10.5 inches. So this is going to be the width of this yoke. So now bringing in the back piece, I just want to confirm if we're going to have the same width as the front. So I'll first of all measure 1 inch away from the midpoint of the back, which is for my zipper allowance, and then I'll further measure 2 inches away from that zipper allowance. So from the midpoint of the back, I'm measuring 3 inches away, and then when I measure all the way to the side, it is also 10.5. So now I am going to multiply that 10.5 by 3 inches. So now let us just call this yoke shoulder plus sleeve, because of course it's covering the shoulders and it's giving a little bit of sleeve. So now the entire width I have measured is 10.5. 10.5 multiplied by 3, I'm multiplying it by 3, and then I'm going to have 31.5. So this is going to give me the fullness I want for this yoke. So if you want yours to be fuller than this, you can multiply it by 4, or lesser, you can multiply it by 2. So now we have our length to be 16.5 inches, and we have our width to be 31.5 inches. Now I'll go ahead and cut it out. So I'll first of all measure the length, which is 16.5. I'll mark 16.5 here, and then I'll go ahead and add 2 inches for allowance. I don't know why I added 2 inches. Please, you can add 1 inch. It depends on how much you're going to use to attach it to the main dress. So I think 1 inch should be enough. So 1 inch, 1.5 inches should be just enough. So after marking the length, I'll go ahead and mark the width, which is 31.5 inches. So just placing my tape there, I'll just measure to 31.5 inches, and then I'll go ahead and just make a mark and cut it out. So we're doing some tearing today, and then after cutting out the width, I'll just proceed to cut out the length as well. So now I have one part cut out here. I'll go ahead and cut out a second one. So this is just a basic rectangle. So I'll go ahead and cut out the second part. So let's say this is for the right side, and now I have another one which is going to be for the left side. So before I attach it, I'm going to go ahead and hem the ends, so just the length. So I'll just fold it in twice, and on this other side I attached hemming gum. I just used hemming gum to hold it, but it would be nicer, to be more preferable and durable, to just sew it in twice, just like I did the other side. Now it is time to attach it to the main dress. I wonder why I'm calling this a dress when it's not fully done. Okay, so bringing in the front part, the top front, I'm going to place the yoke on here. So I'll measure 2 inches away from that midpoint, like I said earlier, and then I'll mark that point there, and that is where I'm going to start attaching my yoke from. So I'm just going to place it right sides facing. So I'll just place the yoke over here like this, and then from that 2 inches point there, I'll pin it down, and I'll go ahead and gather. I'll just use my hand to just pick it little by little. So you can run a gather stitch, but I'm just going to use my hand while I'm sewing it on the machine to just pick it, make small pleats basically. So I'll stop at this side, and then from the midpoint to the side, I'll do the same thing for the other part of this front. So placing the yoke on here 2 inches away from that center front, I'll gather it all the way to the side. So now this is it here after I've attached it. This is how it's looking on the right side, and turning it over to the wrong side, you would see that I did not get to the very edge, to the very side edge. So I left 2 inches before the edge of the side. So when I was cutting out this, if you remember, I added 2 inches for the sewing allowance on the paper. So 2 inches is my sewing allowance, and I just decided to leave out that 2 inches so that by the time I am shaping up my dress, I'm not going to have any complications regarding, the yoke and everything. So now it's time to turn it over with my lining. And now to do that, I'm going to place the yoke on the right side of the front piece. So making sure that everything is on the right side, just like this, I'm going to place the lining piece right sides facing with the main fabric, just like this, making sure that everything is aligned together. I'm going to pin it from one end through the bust area there, that's the sweetheart neck area, and then over to the other end. And now here I'm done pinning it. So the next thing is to sew it. So I want this to be fully lined, so I'm going to be sewing the sides as well, so that by the time I turn it over to the right side, the only part I have open is the waist area. So I'm just going to sew it around where I have pinned and the side, just like this. So here I'm just trimming off the edges and making notches around, especially at that midpoint, the sweetheart part. So I'm going to turn it over to the right side now. So turning it over, this is what it looks like. Everything looks nice on the right side, and then on the inside it looks very neat, just like you can see here. So the only open part I have is just the waist area that I'm going to be attaching to the skirt part. So now it's time to attach the back pieces to the yoke. So I'm just going to measure 3 inches away from the center back, just like I said earlier, and I would start pleating or gathering it until I get to 2 inches before this side, just like I did for the front. So I'll make sure I place it right sides facing like this, and then I would pick the edge of the yoke and I'll place it at the 3-inch part, and then I'll just make small pleats until I get to 2 inches before the side. So I'll do this for the right side of the back, and I'll also do this for the other side. Let's call it the left side. So this is it here after I've attached it together, and the right side is looking nice. I gathered it nicely, so please do well to run a gather stitch if pleating it like this is going to be stressful for you. So here I'm just going to turn in the lining just like I did for the front. So I'll place the lining just here like this, and I'll sew from one end through the yoke area and then to the other side. So I'll do it for the 2 pieces of the back. So here I am done sewing, and I'm just going to trim off some of the edges and notch, and then I'm going to turn it over to the right side. So I'm also going to turn over the other side, trimming the edges, and I'll turn it over as well. So here, this is it. I have my yoke attached to the front and the back pieces. So now it's time to attach the skirt part to this top part. So bringing in the skirt, the front and back skirt pieces, I'm just going to place the skirt here on the waist area of the front piece, making sure that they are right sides facing. I'll just go ahead and make a straight stitch using about 0.5 inches allowance there to just sew it there. And then for the back, I would also place the separate pieces of the skirt right sides facing with the back pieces, and then I'll just sew it this way. So I've attached it here. As you can see, this is how it's looking on the inside for the back pieces, and then for the front piece as well. So the next thing to do is to fix my zipper. So I'm just going to bring in the zipper and I'll fix it to somewhere below the hip line, and then I'm going to leave 15 inches before the end of the dress, just before the end, so that I can have like a slit at that lower part. So my slit is just going to be about 15 inches. So this is it after attaching the zipper here. So it's looking so nice. I also left some inches at the lower part for my slit, just like I said I would. So now this dress is almost ready, except that we have not cut out the back lacing. So that is like the last step for this. So to do that, I'm going to bring in the pattern I had drafted out for the back. So this is the back pattern, and this is what I'm going to be using to cut out the back lacing. So from the top, I'm just going to label some of the lines that I drew out. They're not visible anymore. I'll label chest line, bust point line, and waist line. So I'm doing this because I'm going to be cutting out this bust point line. So my lacing, let me call this lacing panel, right? So my lacing panel is going to start from the bust point line. So I'm just going to place this here, and then I am going to take off 4 inches from the center back. So from here inwards, I'm going to go in by 4 inches, and I'll cut that out. So you can take off 5 inches. I think 5 inches would have been better, but 4 inches still works. I'm just going to cut off that 4 inches I have marked there, and this is what I have for my back lacing panel. So placing it here is taking the shape of the side, because it's also going to be shaped alongside the main dress. So placing it on this other side is going to have a space of about 8 inches in the middle. So if I measure the actual length and width of this lacing panel, it is 5 inches in length and about 8 inches in width. So now it is time to cut out the fabric for the lacing. So I'm using this same Ankara fabric I have been using. I'm going to place it on a fold because I want to cut out the left and the right panels together just as one. So I'll make sure that I have enough distance around it, because I'll be adding some sewing allowance, about 0.5 inches sewing allowance all around. So I'm just going to cut it here with 0.5 inches on every edge. So now after cutting it here, this is what I have. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out on a lining, because of course I'm going to be turning it with a lining. So placing the lining on a fold as well, using the exact same measurement of the fabric, I'm going to just cut this out. So here I have my lacing panel ready, and now I'm going to go ahead and notch one side of it, because almost all the sides look similar, so that I don't get confused as to which side is going toward the middle and which side is going toward the side. Now it's time to mark where I'm going to be attaching the loops. So I'll first come down by 0.5 inches, which is the allowance I added on the paper all around. So from that 0.5 inches, that is going to be the first point I'm going to attach the loop to. And then I'm going to give a distance of 1 inch between each loop. So I'm going to stop 0.5 inches before the end. So you can give a distance of about 1.25 or 1.5 inches, but I'm going to give a distance of 1 inch. So in total, I'm going to have 6 loops going to one side. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut out the piece of fabric I'll use to sew the loops. So it's going to have a width of 1.5 inches, and I'm just going to cut out as long as I think would be enough. So there's no particular measurement I used. I just cut to what I felt was enough. Let me just say about 15 to 18 inches, and then I'm just going to fold it in on itself twice, just like this, and sew it on the outside. Now I have the fabric piece for my loops ready and the back lacing ready. I'll also go ahead and cut out the rope for the lacing, the long rope I'm going to use to lace it. So here I have ironed hairstay on the fabric and the lining pieces for the back lacing, and it is time to cut the loops. So bringing in, so this is the rope that I'm going to use to lace it. If I measure it all the way, it is about, this is about 32 inches on a fold, so the entire thing is about 64 inches. So this is to use to lace everything when I am eventually done. Now it's time to cut out the loops, and for that I'm going to be cutting it out with a length of 2.5 inches. So I'll fold it in like this after cutting out, and I'll attach it to the back panel. So I'm going to cut out 6 different pieces for each side of the back panel, so 6 for one side and 6 for the other side, so like a total of 12 inches. So I'm just going to cut out 12 separate pieces just here. So now I have it ready. Now it's time to attach it to the panels. So I had already measured 1 inch distance earlier, so I measured the point I'm going to be placing it, and now I'm going to fold it and I'll place it at the edge, at the center back. So where I'm placing it is the center back of this panel, and then the folded edge is going to be facing the body of the panel. So it's going to be facing the side. Please, if you don't understand what I'm saying, please just look at what I'm doing. I'm just folding it, placing it at the edge, and it's facing inside. So now that this is done, I'm going to place this lining piece on here, and then I'll go ahead and sew it all around. So I'm placing the lining right sides facing. So I'll start sewing from one end, crossing where I have the panel. Please do well to sew this with a very tight stitch. I'm crossing where I have the loops attached, rather, not panel. So I'll just sew it this way down here, and then to the side I'll leave a little bit of space so that I can turn it over to the right side. So this is what I was just saying. I have sewn it all around and I left a little space. So I just made some notches and I'm turning it over to the right side. So this is it here. Now on this other side I left open, I'll go ahead and close it. So I'll open this other side as well so that you can see what I have done. So here, this is it. I have my panels almost ready. I'll go ahead and give it a very good press, and then I'll close this side. So here I've ironed it and I have sealed that open edge that I left earlier, and now it is time to attach it to the dress so that I can close the sides and so that we can be done with this tutorial. So here I'm placing it right sides facing, and then I'm going to lift up the front part of this dress, and then bringing in these back lacing panels, I'll place it on the sides of the back, right, just here, very close to, just right on where I have the waistline. So I'm just going to place it this way, just like you're seeing, and now I'm going to place the front on top of it like this so that I can shape the side. So this is just normal shaping that you do on your normal dress. It's just that this one has a back lacing panel inside. So I'll just align everything together and pin it on the side, and on the other side as well. I'll just make sure that everything is aligned together. I'll also go ahead and pin it from the armhole part there, and the joining for the top and the skirts, I'll just pin it together there, and then I'll just pin the midpoint to hold everything in place. So now it's time to take my body circumference measurements. So taking my bust measurement on the bust area, my actual bust measurement divided by 2 is about 19.5. So in total I have about 22 inches here. So that means 19.5, I have an extra of 2.5 inches. So I would divide that 2.5 inches by 2, and I will separate what I have to shape up the two sides. I hope you understand. So for my waist normally is 16 inches. That's divided by 2, 16 inches. I have about 18.5. That means I have an extra of 2.5 inches allowance. So I'll divide that 2.5 inches into 2, and I'm going to separate it. I'll just take one to shape up one side and the other one to shape up one side. On my hip, I'm going to do the same thing, but for my hip, I have about 3.5 inches allowance. So when I divide that 3.5 inches by 2, I would separate the two figures to shape up one side and the other side. So just from the armhole all the way to the end. So this is it here after I've shaped it up. Everything is looking nice. See how the back lacing panel is looking. Now we can finally say that we are done with this dress. The back is looking nice, the front is also looking nice. I really love the bust area of this dress. And then when I shaped up this side, it did not affect the yoke because, you know, we kept 2 inches allowance after gathering before this side, if you remember. So this is it for this dress. Everything came out looking so nice. This is the lower part. I have enough allowance on the inside, and everything is looking very neat on the inside. The only place I'll have to maybe weave would be where the top and the skirt are joining, that is the waist area. So now to lace the back, the rope I had already initially cut out, that is about 64 inches in length. I'm just going to pass it through these loops just here at the back. So you're just going to lace it in a zigzag form, just maybe how you lace your shoe. If you have any lacing techniques you can apply at this point. So I'm just going to do what I can here. And now this is it after lacing. Everything is looking nice and the dress is ready. So we have come to the end of this tutorial, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video up to this point. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Also share and kindly subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And now for that yoke area there, you can use, like I used a press stud to hold it in place when I want it closed. You can also use a bra hook to just close it up when you want it closed and leave it open when you want it open. So this is it. Thank you guys so much for watching once again. I hope to see you in my next one. Bye.